Well, we've hit the season of repairs. Yep. Never can come up with some other place to fix it than your mooch dock and at your family's house. Yeah, I ran into a problem with my jacks. Here's what the problem is. Hear how noisy that is? And that's a good one. So as you can hear, it's pretty noisy compared to this one. Oops. So we're going to fix it. All right. So let's see, I'm going to disconnect that. What I'm doing now is just disconnecting these bolts. I'm going to take the whole thing off. You don't really need to take the whole thing off, but I'm going to clean my jacks at the same time. So I'm going to take this whole thing off. Normally you can just take, there's like three Allen head screws, and you could take the motor head off all by itself. But for my purposes, I want to clean my jacks and make sure that the insides are good and not rusting and stuff like that. So.
All right, I'm editing this video and needed to stop quickly. Yes, Gary is going to take that jack off, but that jack. Our camper is on a stand, so we are actually being elevated up. So our jacks are down just for stability. They're actually not weight bearing right now. So back to the video.
To get these jacks off right here, you'll need a 9/16 inch wrench. And of course you got to turn it the right way. So one thing to remember with these jacks, they are very heavy, so leave the hardware in. I usually put the foot down just before it touches the ground. As a matter of fact, I think I might just drop that foot a little bit further. So I did drop the jack down to just where it's just barely touching the ground. I'm doing that just so, sorry, I gotta grab another wrench. I'm doing that just so I don't have to lift it off of here so much. And it'll take some of the weight off of this, off these screws, so it won't fall off here. All right, so I'm just putting these screws together so I don't lose any of the washers and the nuts and the bolts. So I am using all stainless steel. All right, I'm gonna set us up on the truck. Here, we get you folks where you can see something. All right, I'm using a 3/32 Allen head wrench out of my kit. I'll take the motor head off first. I just have a habit, I'll loosen up 3 of the screws. Let's get them loose. Turn them the right way, of course. I don't back them all the way out, I just take them off. And then the motor head comes off that simply. So you've got to watch out for this inside seal so you don't lose that inside seal. And then I'll inspect that later, but I want to see what's going on with the motor first. I forgot I got to get a Phillips screwdriver. Be right back. What the goal is you want to be able to get to these screws here. And one of the things that you can't do real easily is get to these 2 screws down here by the motor. So what you need to do is take this cover off. We had Reico Titan send us a couple new covers, and they're not on their website, but you can order these parts through them. You just got to call them to get the parts, and it will take a little bit to get them. Oh, that one came off pretty easily. And watch this seal on here. You don't want to pinch that seal. They do get kind of brittle at times, so you may want to use some conditioner on this seal. You can also get that seal from Reico Titan. Mine's getting a little checked again. They don't last very long, so. All right, so the next step is to get these motor covers loosened. So there's 4 of them. And just so I don't lose that seal, I'm going to set it off to the side as well. And I like to just go around all 4 of them and get them loose, and then I'll take them out from that point. But I wanted you to see what happens in the noise that makes for a bad motor. I'm believing that's what it is. I don't know for certain. You're going to find out just as much as I do. Whether or not I got to order a new one. All right, got all 4 of the Allen head screws out. Now, I'm going to pull the cover. The thing to note when you pull the cover is there's going to be another seal. and it's typically going to be really greasy. What I'm noticing is I've got a little bit of water intrusion into here. I've got a little bit of rust happening on the gears, and I've got some water sitting in the manual crank area. So what I'm going to do is kind of clean this up, see if that'll help that motor or not. Gotta go get a rag first. So what I'm going to do now is kind of take this apart, tip these gears out. I'm just going to set them in the pan here. As you can see, when I tip it over like this, I'm getting a bunch of water out of there. So water and grease don't usually mix well. So now I'm going to go over and try it on the, kind of wipe some of this grease off here so it don't get slung all over me. Now I'm going to go over to the camper and see if I can try this. All right, so what we're going to do now is my lovely assistant is going to press the control button, and we're going to try and move this.
All right, let's see. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you.
No, you didn't scare me. It's moving. Go the other way with it.
Sounds like crap.
It does. I think the motor's starting to go. All right. It sounds like the motor's going, so I think I've got a spare motor. I'm going to try that. So, you want to kill the camera?
Oh, that's a bummer.
Go ahead. It's a lot quieter. So, take that motor out and put it in.
Yeah.
So, this motor is a lot quieter. So, we're going to take this motor out and put it in there. In the other head, because this one's pretty beat up. Paint-wise, so. All right, folks. So what I'm going to do, since this motor is obviously better than this motor, our original motor, I'm going to take this old one out, this spare part motor, and we're going to put it in there. Doesn't look overly difficult. It's three Allen head bolts, and Reico Titan uses the same wrench for everything. And what I'm doing first is just cracking them all loose, so that way I can get these screws out relatively easy. There's also a grease shield here, call it a splash shield or whatever, just so it keeps the grease flowing towards the gear, not all over the housing. So this is a sealed motor. You can probably take it apart and lubricate everything in there. You know what? Since I got a spare motor that's really quiet, I might just go ahead and use that. Again, this is kind of a greasy job. I don't have my gloves on, but probably should. As a matter of fact, I think I will. So again, you're going to take that splash shield out. It's kind of important to remember which way it goes, because there's a little bit of difference, but I think it only goes in one way, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. So I'm going to do the same thing to the old one. Oh, and by the way, I found that if you're doing some work, 2x4s, X perfect to keep the head balanced. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that one more time. Get this old motor out of here. I suppose I should clip these wires first. So there is a little bit of a hold down for the wire assembly. But again, you're going to take this wire bracket off. Make sure you don't lose that little screw. I think you can get to it. Let's see. I got to cut those. So since the motors are really identical, what I'm going to do is leave these little yellow ends on here so I know which one's the bad one. And then we got to hold those, pull those out of the way. All right. So the bad motor came out. Oh yeah. I don't know if this will pick up on camera or not. Maybe, how rough that one sounds. Hear that one? Not a noise to it. So obviously we've got bad bearings or something that's going on in that motor, but it's definitely making a lot of the growly noise. So it's time to replace it. So I tell you what I'm going to do is clean up some of this gear stuff so I can re-lubricate everything. And yeah, so I'm not going to bore you with cleaning that up because it's just wiping the grease off and cleaning it up. But a little brake cleaner. Other than that, and I'll bring it back when I put it all together. Alrighty. So I found a little secret on how to get this pin out on the motor in case you have a bad clutch assembly and you got a spare part like I do, and you can kind of see what it looks like. So what I did was I put a punch through here so you can kind of see what happens. There's a hole. I was wondering what this hole was all along. There's a hole in the side of this thing, and I'm going to assume that's to put this pin in because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do that. Hopefully you can see that. But you wouldn't be able to get that pin in or out. So what I did was I just punched that out of the old one just to see what it looks like underneath because I'd never had those clutches off. So I punched it out with a punch and a hammer and comes right out. So then you can take this whole gear assembly off. And what I do is I didn't mess with my clutches before, and this is what the clutch looks like on the other side of this. And there's some little ball bearings and stuff like that in there. So when you're hearing that ratchet noise, when you either go too high or you're out too far, which I don't think anybody ever goes out too far. So when you go up too high and you do that, that's what's ratcheting. It's just a clutch to help protect the motor from and the gears from stripping out. So it basically creates a ratchet effect that springs down without breaking the gears. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can kind of see what it is. It's like a big spring. Thought I'd show you that. A little interesting tidbit on how to get that out of there. Now, my clutch is not bad in mine, but I'm going to keep this as a spare part. So, and also, just as a word of note, when your stuff locks up, chances are it's going to be this that's kind of hung up. Maybe got a little bit hung up on the grease and stuff like that. So that may be why when you go to use the manual portion of this, it breaks loose because that clutch just got stuck. So, all right. Now we're going to put this motor back in. Should probably clean this gear up. We're going to put the good motor in. All right, simple. Poke the wires through, line up the holes. Only pretty much can go in one way because the wire's got to go through the half moon slot. And then put this stuff back in. All right, so I'm finding it easier rather than needing 3 hands to put that plate in there. What I'm going to do is just take this one and have it hold the housing for me. All right, so I'm going to have to hold that housing, and I'm going to tighten up all 3 of these. So I don't make sure they don't come loose. So I'm going to use the shorter end and give it a little bit of willy on there. You've got to be a little careful because you don't want to break this plastic housing or this plastic piece on there. So you just want to get it snug. Lock washers on there will keep it in place. So you just want to kind of get it snug. You don't need to bear down on it. So then what I'm going to do is just grease this up here so I don't forget to do it. So now I've got to take these 2 wires and connect them up here. I'm going to use big butt splices because of the wire size here. All right, give her a snug tug. So it looks like we're all intact yet. Oh no, that's not cool. No sense in messing with it. It's gonna redo it. Just the wires coming out of this motor are really short. Well, if at first you don't succeed, you try again. All right, so this time we do have to be careful now. Okay. Now we got it right. So it is a little bit tough to get in there with your tool. The reason I didn't, it may be easier if you take the cord out. The reason I didn't do that is because I already had it siliconed in there and I really didn't want to disturb the silicone. I do have to get a little bit of silicone down in there. So what I did was I put 100% silicone right there. So you can kind of see it just to kind of seal up where those mounts go in there. Because obviously I'm getting water in there and we don't want the water in the motor. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that bracket in there. I don't think I'm going to be able to. So we're just going to have to set these off to the side, I think. because I'm not going to be able to get this plastic thing in there to hold it down. All right, so I'm going to schmutz up my gears. Let's get a bunch of grease on them. Suppose if I put it in right, it might help. The gear goes down. All right, so we're working now. And there's a little bit of clearance. It doesn't rub on there between the two gears. So I think I'm going to put the cover back on and do all of that nifty stuff. All right, so you get this seal on. Okay. And once you do that, you just lay the seal in there. Be very careful to put the seal in so it doesn't get pinched. And you put your 4 screws in. All right, so one thing you don't want to do is what I just did, is over tighten it too quickly. Because that O-ring, that black seal will pop out. And we want to make sure our wires didn't get caught in here. Oh, of course. Yep, my O-ring got a little mashed, so we're going to have to pull it back out again. It's a very tedious process getting this O-ring in. And as suspected, my O-ring did flip out of there, so. Good part is my wires are tucked in, so we are golden there. All right, try that again. And this usually takes a couple times to get it right. All right, we'll try this again. This time, hopefully I won't pinch the O-ring in there. So like I said, I'm just trying to snug them in, making sure the O-ring doesn't pop out. And I'm crisscrossing my tightening here. I'm just pushing that screw in just till she's getting snug. All right, so what I'm looking for now is just to make sure none of my O-ring is poking out. And I'm just going to give it a snug down. Just gradually tightening it down as I go. All right, these are all snug. And I don't know if you can see this real well, but my thing is dirty, but you can see I've got black seal is all the way in, all the way around. And I'm just snug enough. It's just tight enough that the seal is not poking out. Kind of important that you don't squish that seal out or pinch it. So you want to make sure that you can see that seal all the way around. Otherwise you're going to get water in there because it'll drive it in from the sides. So I think what I'm going to do is get some rubber conditioner for that seal. So I'm going to put these screws back in. I lubricated this seal a little bit. They're not the greatest of seals, but again, you can buy those from Reico Titan. The motor is a sealed motor, so I mean, if water does get in there with the seal, I don't think it's that big a deal. Simply because there's 2 holes here too, to A, relieve heat, and B, to drain the water out so you're not building up too much water. So if you have an old jack head that maybe has a stripped gear or something like that, save the motor. If the motor was working, it may be good something to save. Again, all these parts are come out of there fairly easily. Even that clutch assembly is fairly simple to do. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to save the parts and maybe save yourself $300. So I just want to make sure that it sounds like the other one. So we're going to see if this is it. It obviously doesn't have the leg on it, so it's going to be a little bit different, but should be almost closed. Nice and quiet. Sounds just like this one. Hang on one second. Okay. Sounds just like it. So I guess we got it fixed. Good to go.